Welcome back to another episode of Code to Cloud. And I'm joined by a local legend. Yes, the one and only Ken Weare. Ken, how's it going, dude?
Good. I'm not sure how I live up to that intro, but no, doing well. Thanks for having me on.
So yeah, just to give some context, Ken's based out of Alberta as well, right? So it's always fun when we have one of our illustrious product managers, right, that are based in the same area as us, right? It means we get to know the inside track sometimes, and we have an expert to call as well, right? When we're trying to solve problems. But Ken, do you just want to quickly introduce yourself and tell folks what you do?
Yeah, sure. So, as mentioned, my name's Kent Weir. I'm a product manager on the Azure Logic Apps team. So, I've been with Microsoft around 7 years, just over 7 years now. Kind of worked on a few different teams. The first one was Microsoft Flow, which is now known as Power Automate. Spent a couple years with the PowerCat team, so our customer advisory team, working on Power Virtual Agents, which is now Copilot Studio, and then also RPA, the Power Automate desktop piece. And then I got back to my integration roots about 4 years ago and joined the Logic Apps team in a product management capacity. So the brunt of my career has really been around automation and integration, working in the energy sector here in Calgary, and then also Microsoft, and just working with a lot of customers and numerous different industries all over the world. So yeah.
It's pretty wild ride. Like you've been in different markets with different products, right? And obviously, a lot of it's around automation and integration, right? Those are the key things that I was picking out of that. But yeah, so we're going to talk about logic apps today, right? And integration's a big point because what we're still seeing. Yes, this may be a shocker for people listening in. There are still systems that don't even know what the cloud is, right? Or they don't know what a modern interface is. Or maybe we've got systems that are sporadic, right? And have different compatibility, right? Or they pass data differently. And that's where we need cloud native integration, right? So, Ken, what is a logic app?
Yeah, so a Logic app really is a workflow at its core. And what sort of makes it, I guess, unique or valuable is the ability to connect to different systems, as you just mentioned, right? So that is part of our value prop, is this notion of connectors and that allow you to talk to these different systems. And you might be thinking, well, who cares about that? Like everything's a REST API, or nowadays everything's MCP servers. Like who cares? And it's like, well, the reality is there is a lot of variety out there. Like there still are databases, SQL Server databases, Oracle databases, MySQL databases, SAP interfaces, files, SFTP, you name it. And so you oftentimes get into these modernization plays where you need to sort of connect the old world to the new world. And I think that has been more of the iPaaS era, which is probably, the last, 5 years or so. And now we're getting more into the agentic side of the world, and those same principles still apply, right? Like at the end of the day, your customer data might be in an old system. You might need to converge or complement, enrich it with some other data in one of these modern SaaS platforms. And how do you go ahead and do that? And developers can always look at this and say, hey, I can write the code to go do this. But there is this notion of democratization and how you can go ahead and make this problem more approachable to more people. If we look back at earlier parts of my career, there was this like middleware that would exist, your BizTalk servers, your Tibco, your SOA web methods, those types of things. Those are typically very difficult tools to go use. And as a result, there was a small group of experts, usually expensive consultants, that were required to go build these systems. And it was really critical for your business operations. The introduction of iPaaS and REST and Swagger and OpenAPI really sort of made connecting these systems easier and making it visual. And even now, as we get into more of this like agentic development, you might be saying, well, do I still need this? And I, in some ways, no, but in some ways, yes. Like at the end of the day, you're going to build this integration, but it needs to live on. and you need to see basically that it's working. And you need to be able to visualize as a part of a broader business process where I'm at in the particular process to know if there's failures and things like that. And so I think there's still a lot of value in a visual experience. Now, how we go build those workflows going forward might be a little bit different in terms of like prompting, but I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that here on the show.
Totally, and there'll be a new version of prompt engineering, right, in 2 years' time, and I like the way that you sort of loop that back, and I can't emphasize more, right? I have worked in organizations and there's a BizTalk server, and Dave was the only person that knew how the BizTalk server worked, right? And was on a very he was making bank, right? So so it's true, right? Um, and with the database scenario or the mainframe scenario, right? I think it was Harold, right? I
Yeah,
saw,
he's a
I forget,
colleague. Yeah, Harold. Yeah,
yeah, Harold, great guy. Look him up. You know, my old foe, the IBM mainframe, uh, runs the world,
still
right?
does.
Frames, and like people are like, well, why do we still need them? Because guess what? They don't fall over, right? And they're running banking systems and real
Healthcare.
critical services, healthcare, defense, you name it, right? Like it is what it is.
Yep.
And he showcased connecting to one of these bad boys, right? And then pull it, passing the day. I was blown away. I was like, and that's what you need, right? Because when we think of microservice architecture as well, to your point, Ken, it's like, well, that connector, right? Well, that interface that we're creating with the logic app is something that I can limit the blast radius on, because whatever I'm going to be passing it through, I'm going to be replacing at some point, right?
Yep.
In Azure. It's going to happen, right? Innovation, iteration, etc. But yeah, the whole AI agentic engineering or agentic development, right? Whatever you want to call it, is accelerating things, right? So we talked about what it can connect to, some good names there, SAP, etc., etc. Where would folks get started? What is like a common use case that you see generally when you hear back from our customer base?
Yeah, and it's probably like every industry, every like it's super broad, but like what you would typically like how I like to orient these things is like let's say you have some sort of business process, like order to cash, right? Like that would be something where you're taking in some sort of order from a customer and then you need to sort of take it down all of these steps. And those steps could be like, hey, do we have stock? Right? Oh, who is the counterparty? Like, what is their current risk status? Right? Like, are they on a bad, like, have they not paid their bills before? Are they in good standing? Are they eligible for some sort of discount because they're one of our top customers? Now, in the event that this is out of stock, like is it on back order? Who do we need to go talk to in order to go ahead and replenish the stock? So you can imagine like there's all of these business processes that need to take place, and those can take place across multiple systems. And so the whole idea there is you want to be able to orchestrate this using a kind of a workflow technology because these are not necessarily like snappy things where everything happens in microseconds. These could be things that happen at like over, minutes, hours, even days as you think about like the humans that you might need to engage in order to go ahead and fulfill this order. So take a scenario of like, hey, I want to order a good, a widget from you, and maybe it's out of stock, right? Like it doesn't just stop. The business process doesn't stop there. You might say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to then email the customer saying, this is out of stock. I've, put in a back order for you. I will reach out to you when it's available in, X period of time. In the meantime, in parallel, I'm reaching out to a supplier that says, "Hey, I need to order more of these so that I can actually go ahead and basically fulfill this order." And so those are not necessarily, hey, I'm picking up the phone and talking to someone. Those are like system to system interactions that take place. And so, yeah, I'll send a request over the wire over some protocol. Maybe it's HTTP, maybe it's some like message queuing technology. And then I'll get a response back. And it says, oh, okay, yep, we have this available. It's on its way. Here's the tracking ID. You can expect it in 3 days. Well, now I need this orchestrator that says, hey, okay, I've got confirmation. Now I should probably reach out to that customer and say, hey, yes, we have this. It'll be at your doorstep on like whatever date. And so you can imagine like how, a very sort of simple statement like order to cash becomes a very broad business process. And historically, you've got people tracking things in spreadsheets, making phone calls, and they're like, having to keep track of this stuff. Customer services, falls apart because they're like, this person's busy, they haven't called me back. And this is how you basically go ahead and can integrate these systems in order to automate a business process. And I think that's where our workflow engine shines because we can actually go ahead and orchestrate these processes that can be long running. You don't have to worry about, oh, did someone reboot the server because it's patch Tuesday? Well, no, this is cloud native. We have checkpoints in our workflow, and basically this is persistent and durable and long running. And so this is why people will pay money for integration platforms because this is a business process that's really important to your business, right? This is what an order. This could be $100,000 order. This could be $1 million order, right? So you want to be able to have predictability around this. And so I would say that is historically kind of a traditional use case for us, like order to cash. But you could think about things like HR onboarding, right? So you join a new organization and there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, right? So it's like you got to get enrolled in benefits, right? You need to go ahead and submit basically your social and security or social insurance number for the Canadians. And okay, so that piece is done. Now you need to be registered inside of Entra ID. Oh, now you need an Office 365 license. Oh, now you need to be added to all of these different groups, right? Once again, that's happening across several different systems. And how do you orchestrate that? That's where integration. So is this still relevant? Absolutely. Because everyone's going to have different flavors of systems. If anything, with the introduction of, vibe coding and people building more systems, there's going to be more need for this, not less. And I'd say where we're headed is I did mention some of those situations where you've got a human that does need to get involved, and that's where the agentic piece kind of fits into this quite nicely. Like we haven't had to like burn down the platform to add agentic capabilities. More it's like in like added on top. And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, if you've got situations where a human has had to make a judgment call based upon some sort of a business process, well, now if we can actually document that, we can actually leverage an AI agent to go ahead and reason over top of that information and actually be able to make decisions for you that comply to your organization. And so that's where this agentic piece comes in, where historically, like you're going to automate as much as you can because there's deterministic known paths for that to take place. But when it's kind of one of those things of like, hey, this person, their credit is kind of on the borderline. Historically, they've been really good. I don't know if I want to like piss them off by cutting them off. That's like a decision for Sally, right? But it's kind of like, okay, what would be the decision points that Sally would use in order to make that final decision? You can put that in a document. Now you can have AI go ahead and take care of some of those decisions for you.
So that's a great example, right? Because there's nothing worse, right? Where that human interpretation of making an informed decision. Systems are clinical,
Yeah.
right? So it used to be yes, no. So what we're saying now is with agentic processes, there's more of a, I'm not going to say more of a human feel to it, but are we saying there's, yeah, instead of cutting them off, potentially they could let the order go through, right? I don't know.
Well, here, can I show you an example?
Go for it. Like we
Yeah.
love a
So
demo on Code to
s-
Cloud.
so let's share my screen here.
Hopefully this works because
And
we haven't tested it beforehand, like professionals.
so this was actually, what you had said just totally resonated with me. Because I was in Europe last year. I was in the Netherlands, and we had just sort of introduced our agentic capabilities. And so that's what we see here. We've got an agentic business process where we've got a workflow. This workflow we'll call an agent. The agent will use a GPT-5 model, or use it any model you want, pretty much. We've got system instructions, and we're now going to orchestrate a business process. In this case, the use case comes back from that customer, and they want to audit ServiceNow tickets. So whenever a ServiceNow ticket is closed, and they're one of these kind of like big sort of accounting type firms, so the audit is kind of important for these folks.
Totally.
So they want to be able to go ahead and take this through a process. Now, today, or historically rather, they had a human that would do this. So they would get an email every time a ServiceNow ticket was closed, and they would then go into ServiceNow and have to like validate a series of different fields to make sure that they was compliant with their process. And, as we were discussing this technology, they're like, well, that would be amazing. This would free up this person to go do higher valuable things while ensuring of compliance. So the idea here is like, how would we go ahead and enforce this? And this is where you can do something as simple as like documenting it, putting it in something like a Word document. I would argue Markdown would be even better, but here's basically where you are going ahead and indicating what your expectations are. So in ServiceNow, there's going to be a field for business impact. And whenever someone closes a ticket, the expectation is that this should be something measurable. I'm sure we've all been there. We got to close a ticket. It's a mandatory field. We say NA or blah or whatever. And that, solves the technical requirement, but it doesn't actually solve the business need. And so here we can go ahead and say this field should demonstrate material impact to the business. This could mean lost productivity measured in hours or days. It could mean a lower customer satisfaction score or lost revenue. So the point here is that we need to quantify this. And so you can do this for all of these other fields that you're interested in. And then what will actually happen is that when the ticket is closed, this logic app will get fired. It'll be called, over HTTP, basically a webhook, and then we're going to go ahead and pass this off to the agent. So the agent saying, follow this business process and to obtain the ticket validation rules, which is going to be a tool that's going to go fetch that document from SharePoint. Then go ahead and retrieve the ticket details. We need to know what's this ticket's about, because the request from ServiceNow is really kind of a lightweight message saying, hey, it's more of an event. Hey, this ticket is closed, but we don't have the additional details. So we're going to go fetch the details. Then we're going to go and get the ticket closer details, like who closed the ticket, because we need to be able to send them feedback about their ticket. And then send a summary of the ticket review, and ensure you use the formatting guidance from our rules content. So we also have non-functional requirements here, right? So we've got our functional requirements here, our validation rules, but we've got non-functional requirements too, of like, hey, use HTML, use red light, green light indicators, and provide make it look pretty. And so what'll happen is when this runs, we will basically cycle through these various tools, and the AI will go ahead and use this knowledge to basically execute its process. Now, when I was going through this and I built this demo myself, I'm like, wow, this agent is far more strict than a human would be. And kind of to your point that you just made, Kevin, is that, yeah, systems are not going to have these emotions necessarily about like, is this my buddy? Are they good? Do I know them? It's going to be like, no, like these are the rules. And so this for sure was harder than I was. And so I've got a couple examples of like the ticket review. So that's the positive scenario. Um, and so like here might be an example of, you know, like some examples, right? Where we've got work notes. So they didn't provide work notes. So we're saying like, hey, go ahead and add these recommendations, like, and do this. And so if we did something like business impact, so this is quantifiable. So there's no objections here. But if I would have just said, employees on the 11th floor not able to work, it would have flagged and said, no, that's not measurable. Like, what is the impact of those 10 employees not working? Like, was it lunchtime and so they weren't supposed to be working, right? Or, were they out for 2 hours and resulted to 20 hours of productivity? Or was it like, hey, our website's been down and now our NPS is down 40%. That's measurable, right? And so that is kind of what we're looking for from that perspective. And, here would be an example of like how everything was good. But it was kind of wild when I was going through this. Like, for example, I put resolution stat notes and I thought I would be like, you know, pretty honest here. And I'd be like, okay, we replaced the router. And it's like, no, 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 that's not good enough. Like, I need to know ID. And so then I had to go back and add like, okay, we replaced like this particular serial number with this serial number. So it was going after me hard. But if you use AI but still make sure we're aligned to the business objectives. And that's why I'm such a huge proponent of knowledge and how knowledge really becomes your secret power for your agent. Because sometimes people are like, oh, this AI stuff, like I just don't see the value. And what they've probably done is just gone into like ChatGPT chat and are using it. And it's kind of like, yeah, this is no good. This is out of date. But when you actually can bring knowledge as a tool to your agent, then it becomes a game changer because things then get to run in the context of your business need. And then it's the technologies there just to go ahead and execute on top of it.
So is the agent
So yeah,
hosted
any
within
questions
the
on?
oh, I think we're having some technical difficulties here. Can you
Yeah,
hear
so
me?
you're asking about I can. You're asking about where the agent is hosted, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, inside of the Logic app. You said it was using a model there, right? Is it inbuilt into the platform or is it going to Foundry? Like how does it work?
Yeah, so there's two modes. This particular mode, so we are using a Azure OpenAI model, right? So we've got a connection string or connection to this particular model. Now we do have integration with Foundry as well. So we will let you go ahead and select a Foundry project, and from that Foundry project, you can go ahead and choose a deployment from that Foundry project, and that so you're now starting to use that ecosystem. The other thing that automatically happens here is that this will get registered inside of the Foundry control plane, right? So you will go ahead and see this as an agent inside of Foundry, and we also have integration with the traces as well. So you will see traces of that agent in Foundry, in addition there as well. So we are part of the same org as Foundry. So we're in Core AI. We're part of the apps and agents team. So we do a lot of work with Foundry. We've got a lot of integration with them. If you go to the Foundry tools catalog, and maybe I can quickly show that you will actually see are connectors, right? So we talked about connectors, and that's naturally something that is quite important in terms of the connectivity landscape. And this is another sort of integration that we've done with Foundry, so that if you want to connect your agent to the enterprise, you can go ahead and do so. So in the context of a Foundry project, we can head over to tools here, and then we can connect a tool. And if we just go ahead and do a search for, let's say, ServiceNow, I was in the wrong tab.
This is a common one, right? This is a big one that we see a lot of, right?
For sure. Yeah, it is a popular connector. And so now what we can go ahead and do is we'll go through a little wizard here on the Logic App side that will allow you to dynamically create an MCP server based upon these connectors. And these connectors, they have like it is kind of an interesting paradigm. Like ServiceNow will have these generic operations, and then these operations will go ahead and need some configuration. And that's what we're allow you to go ahead and do through this wizard. Now, what's happening under the scenes here is like we're provisioning a logic app, so that in this case, this project can go ahead and use it. That's why we're just kind of seeing this spin here for a little bit.
It's
But
okay.
um, but
So
but yeah.
just some questions on that then the deployment. Do you select where that gets deployed? Is it in a separate resource group or like what's the I know I'm asking some nitty-gritty details here, but it's like behind the scenes, right? It's going to be deploying that service somewhere.
Yeah, so there's kind of there's two ways to approach this. This is what we call like our getting started experience, where we really, you might not be familiar with Logic apps, and so this is going to kind of abstract some of those complexities. Where this will be deployed is in the same resource group as your Foundry project. So you'll see it over there from that perspective. But the other option we do have is for people that want more customization. They can head over into a Logic app. So this is a Logic app standard instance running inside of Azure. And you can go ahead and take existing workflows that you might have, and you can build your own MCP server dynamically. And so here I've got a few MCP servers. And here, maybe what I'll just do is I'll create a new one so you can kind of see that wizard experience. So I'm going to go ahead and create an MCP server. I'll see the wizard, much like this is what we would have seen on the Foundry side after that. So we'll call this like ServiceNow MCP, and then ITSM uh, server. We'll just keep things simple to save keystrokes here. Then we'll go ahead and add that particular connector. So we'll just say service now, and we'll click on that. And then, so this is where I was starting to talk about the different actions in the connector. So this is a really important situation. Sometimes we get asked, hey, why don't you take all of these connector actions and automatically deploy them as MCP servers? And I would say if we did that, it would be an absolute nightmare. And I'm going to show you why. So here, we're just going to take two actions, keep it simple. And oh gosh, I need to go do this. So, oh, this is going to take a few seconds here. But
What's
yeah.
asking for here?
So connection details, and I'm going to have to show my password and instance, and that's not going to be great. Here, let me just do this.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll just pull this over here. Just give me a second. I've just pulled this over to another screen.
Gotta love service
And
principles, right? And everything else. It is what it is. So Ken is doing some behind the scenes magic cybersecurity practices, right? This is a demo, folks. This is a demo.
yeah. Okay, so I'm getting closer here.
There was a lot of connectors though when you were searching that up. I saw like Adobe, the extensive catalog, right, of stuff that's already out of the box, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so we've got 1,400 plus connectors out of the box. And, there's a wide variety there. We've got things like your first party, Microsoft stuff. So like Office, 365, email teams. We've got your Azure first party stuff. So, hey, I want to call Azure Function, Service Bus, message queuing, Cosmos DB, etc. Then we get into some of the third-party SaaS solutions as well. So, ServiceNow, Adobe, Salesforce, uh, DocuSign, things like that. And then you get into, like um, we call them, what do we call them now? It's basically independent publishers. So anyone can go write their own connector based upon Swagger or Open API and publish it. And it goes through a short vetting process. And then from there, you can go ahead and, use it. It becomes publicly available. We also offer this notion of custom connectors where for your organization, you might have your own like homegrown solution, and it has a REST API. Once again, expose it using Open API, then build that custom connector experience once. And once you go ahead and do that, you can then share it. It becomes discoverable inside of your organization. And from there, you can go ahead and use it. So yeah, a large variety. The other thing that we do have is what we call these built-in connectors. And I am delaying here. I'm waiting for my ServiceNow instance to wake up. But we do have this notion of like a built-in connector as well. And these are kind of interesting in the sense that they run in your dedicated compute. And so for a lot of these Azure first-party services like Service Bus or Functions or even API management, you might want to go ahead and call a service on your private network, your own VNet. And so that's what this is going to allow you to do. Those other connectors like Salesforce, ServiceNow, Office 365, like those run in the cloud. Like those are SaaS-based services. You need public connectivity to go hit those endpoints. But when you've taken some of your Azure resources or even your on-prem resources and you've put that, behind your VNet or inside of your VNet, we will actually create that bridge for you so that you can actually go ahead and call out to those different instances as well, because that is going to be important for more of your enterprise scenarios. And here we can see your favorite connectors, like your mainframe. Those are great examples of like when you need that VNet connectivity, and that's how we'll go ahead and accomplish that.
Yeah, the only reason I emphasize that bit is because I love the fact that it's like I say the old world because they've still been used everywhere, but it's like, when worlds collide, right? And it's bringing everything together. I thought it was really impressive.
Yeah, I know it is a little eye-opening for sure. Okay, so my service now is up. I'm almost here. And yes, let's just bring this back in focus. So I'm going to go ahead and create a connection to this particular instance. Thanks for bearing with me. And so what this is these are essentially credentials, and this is going to allow that logic app to go ahead and connect to that instance of ServiceNow. And that's, that's basically how that's going to take place.
Awesome. We had we could do it through the Foundry portal, where that's more prescriptive, I would say, getting you up and running. And then there's like, I like to use the annotation of bring your own, right? With Foundry, it seems to be you bring your own everything, right, to connect to it. So this would be bring your own logic app, right, to it. So
Yeah, and that's where it's really this kind of better together story, right? Like
totally.
it is a lot of like if we think about these connectors, these, this is 10 years in the making. When Logic Apps, Power Apps, Power Automate, or Microsoft Flow launched, like there was not 1,400 different connectors. And so this idea of starting from scratch from a Foundry perspective to go have all of these tools, that requires quite a bit of runway in order to go do that. And that's where this kind of better together comes along. And so the idea with Foundry is you get into this kind of experience where you can go ahead and configure these MCP servers dynamically, and then you go ahead and be able to use them from your Foundry agent. And so this was the one point I wanted to make where, ServiceNow will expose like a very generic operation called create record. Well, create record of what? They've got hundreds of tables that you can actually go and create a record of. And so this is why you wouldn't want to expose the ServiceNow connector directly as an MCP server. You would want to know what is the business context that your agent is targeting. So if we're creating an ITSM agent to go ahead and create incidents, well, we'd want to go do that. Same thing with parameters. Can you imagine your agent guessing which of these parameters are important?
Well, it can only keep 10 things in its memory at once, right? That's what it seems like when I'm using an agent anyway,
Well,
right? Yeah, so it's difficult,
it,
right?
exactly, and that's why, like, I'm a big believer that you do need to sort of narrow the scope.
Oh, the scope's critical, right, with agents,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
so that you can improve the accuracy. You throw all of these things out there, you're gonna have wild results, and then you're gonna say AI doesn't work. But it comes back to, like, okay, let's kind of narrow some scope so that we can kind of focus on what the business needs. Like trying to put out the Uber agent that does magically talks to everything, I don't think is practical yet. In the future, maybe. But I think if you want to have higher, predictability, better outcomes, you should like try to narrow scope, and you can still be flexible here. And that's what we've tried to do. So for example, if we want to do severity and short description, we'll provide different modes here where we'll say, okay, this will be provided by the model. But let's say I wanted to hard code something. I could. Um, this wouldn't be a great example of short description. It'd be a hard coded issue, right? But like that just proves up, like just shows that there is some flexibility. But what we'll do here is we're gonna save changes, and I'm just gonna leave list records for in the interest of time as is. Um, and so what's gonna happen under the hood is we are going to dynamically create two workflows that will expose endpoints that will go ahead and basically provide this tool functionality, right? So we've got our MCP server here. Let's take a look at the create record workflow. So this is under this, under the hood, what's happened. So we've gone ahead and we've updated this description here. So when the MCP call is made. This will come up as a description, and I could have made that a little better in the interest of time. But then what we see here is this request schema is provided, right? So this will now know, this will now communicate to the agent what are the fields available that we're expecting to be provided. Now, we could also, if we were dead set on having these, add these as update this to include their names for we've got required pieces. But when we're then conversing, with the agent itself, it will then know that these are the fields of interest that we need to go capture. And then what happens is that these are automatically wired into the ServiceNow connector action, and we can see it's of type incident, and that there we have it. Now, if I wouldn't have gone through that step, this would have also been basically a placeholder. This would have been dynamic. But the thing is, then the model has to guess what is the name of the table inside of ServiceNow.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so what'll happen is it'll eventually get it right, but it'll have to retry. Like it'll try incidents, then it'll try incident. And so you run into those types of situations, and it leads to that unpredictability. In the meantime, the user's like, dude, just create the damn incident. What's taking so long? And the reason is like, well, it got a failure, so it's now trying to fix it. So by doing some simple configuration, I think you can kind of, like improve the accuracy of these agents. And I think at the end of the day, especially as we're still early days here, you need to provide that value. While it would be great that this super loosely coupled and magic happens, I would rather focus on like more predictability right now and getting value. And even if that means doing a little bit of this configuration. And our goal is to make this really dynamic so that you can do this quickly. Like you saw, we created 2 workflows like that. And then these become available as MCP servers, right? So here we could go ahead, copy the URL, and we have authentication. We've got both key-based and OAuth. So depending upon your needs, you've got those options available there. And you could go plug this in. So we could, had more time, go to VS Code and connect into this and go ahead and start using it.
Totally. That was great, Ken. And funnily enough, I've got a use case next week that's based around that. So this is quite convenient as well, right? But I like the fact that it was granular. And to your point, I'm talking to folks all the time. Scoping knowledge sources down improves better quality for agents, right? And that's where we can see the real power of the integration there with Logic Apps as well. So kudos to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're working on adding skills to our
Yeah.
solution here. Like that's kind of an example of a skill, but they're super important. The idea is that they're just markdown files, but they enrich your use case. So folks, grab your business processes, get them in Markdown, and then let your agent leverage them to become more capable. It's a game changer. It really is.
You know, this is a side note before we wrap up. It's ironic that YAML and Markdown is becoming the most common, like the most common document languages that I'm seeing with AI, right? It just,
Yeah, it's funny.
it's wild, right? Like even like my wife's using it. She's like, "Oh, I did this," and it output it to Markdown. And she goes, "What's Markdown?" And I'm like, "Exactly, right? It's the new
Yeah,
TXT file, right?"
it is. It is.
But yeah, thanks very much, Kent, for coming on. If people want more Kent in their life, right, they want to know what's going on, updates. I know you're a very well-traveled man, right? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, look for me on LinkedIn, and I would say also look for me on YouTube. So yeah, like youtube.com/Kent Weare. And I've got a pretty active channel there. I try to post weekly. Doesn't always happen, but yeah, a lot of Logic App stuff there, but just even agentic stuff too. I do talk about Foundry up there. I've got like Foundry evaluations. I got a lot of MCP server stuff. And then more recently, and I know we don't have time to talk about this, but my latest hobby is really GitHub Copilot CLI. That is some amazing tech, and I've been posting more and more about that lately. So so go ahead and check that out.
I just wrote a blog about that. We need to get you back on the show and we'll do an episode on that because I am like completely invested, right? Like it's the best thing since sliced bread to me. So but yeah,
Yeah, would love to. It's I put out a video actually just this week about ways in which I'm using it. and some of it might even surprise people. But yeah, go ahead and check that video out on my YouTube channel. But yeah, I would love to come talk shop. It's an amazing piece of tech, and it's so awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Kent. Thanks
Yep,
to our listeners. Again, if you like what you've listened to or watched, don't forget to like, comment, share, and repeat. And also, you may find Kent lurking around on our Discord server as well. He does like
yeah,
to
from
post his links there, right? So, yeah, come on over. Thank you very
yeah,
much. And we'll catch you on the next one.
yeah. No, thank you.
Goodbye for now.